Israel has launched airstrikes against Iran. Iranian state media is reporting explosions in the capital, Tehran, just before 8:15 in the morning. Warning sirens sounded across Israel, warning Israelis to stay close to shelters in the event of any retaliation. Israel's defence minister has described the attack as preemptive. Our Middle East correspondent Matthew Doran joins us on the phone now from Jerusalem. Hi there, Matt. If you can hear me there, just tell us what we know so far about these strikes.
Yeah, so this information is still coming through as we speak, Melissa, but certainly been in around half an hour or so since we got that alert, that preemptive alert from Israeli authorities that something was happening, and then this confirmation from the Israeli Defence Minister, Israel Katz. Now, what we know is that there has been this massive build-up of US military hardware across the Middle East, while Donald Trump has been trying to pressure Iran into signing a deal to curb its nuclear ambitions. We now also know that, of course, Israel has been part of these negotiations, or at least part of the planning when it comes to whether or not there can be any Israeli involvement in these strikes. And it now appears that that may well be what has happened there. So Israel certainly going it alone. You would have to think that, so given the sensitivity of this situation and given the strong ties between Israel and the United States, that the US would be fully aware of what has been happening here in the last short while or so. So we are also seeing some reports, and I do need to stress at the moment that these are unconfirmed reports for the ABC, but certainly the New York Times, as one outlet, is citing a US official suggesting that US strikes on Iran are also underway. So this situation could continue to develop as we're talking, and right throughout the morning here in the Middle East. It is currently just before 9 a.m. here in Jerusalem. It's almost 10:30 in the morning in Iran. So not early morning, not super early morning strikes as we've seen in the past, but certainly something that is happening and is very much a developing story at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will, of course, bring our viewers the information that we get as it comes to hand. What we're looking at now are some pictures coming in from news agencies of explosions in Tehran. These are pictures that have just come in to the newsroom over the last few minutes. Matt, you mentioned there, of course, that we've been expecting, or, you know, we've seen this build-up of US military presence in the Middle East over quite some time now. Is there any idea what has sort of triggered these strikes by Israel on Iran today?
Well, we know that there has been these talks between the US and Iran, the most recent round of talks in Geneva on Thursday. There was also further negotiations involving the Omani foreign minister, who's been acting as sort of the mediator here between both of the countries there. That was continuing in the US, and he was certainly striking a fairly positive tone when he was speaking about that situation in the US media. It was earlier today, Australia time, last night, Middle East time. We know that the situation as it stands is that there has been this full build-up of US military assets in the region. The most recent arrival has been the largest aircraft carrier within the US Navy, that is the USS Gerald Ford. That arrived in Haifa, the northern port city of Israel, yesterday. That's fairly close to the Lebanon border, but certainly bolstering any sort of defences from that western flank of the Middle East. It's the second aircraft carrier in the region after the USS Abraham Lincoln, which has been in the Arabian Sea for some time now. So the fact that this has happened today, clearly there must be an assessment from within the US and within the Israeli authorities that any deal on curbing Iran's nuclear ambitions is not the case, that it would not necessarily be what they were looking for, or not as strong as what they were looking for, and that is why this decision has happened now. We also do know that there has been a lot of reporting lately that Israel has been pressuring the US to act in this way, to effectively go ahead and do this as quickly as possible. We know that last year, back in June last year, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, he launched these attacks against Iran's nuclear program and against high-ranking Iranian military officials back then. That was back in June. That was without US involvement, although the United States did come in about halfway through that 12-day war, or about two-thirds of the way through, actually, that 12-day war, and use its sophisticated B-2 stealth bombers to drop heavy payloads on Iranian nuclear facilities. That was its involvement. But Israel went it alone there as well. So this is not necessarily surprising in that respect, that Israel have sort of jumped the gun here or gone it alone, but certainly it does appear to be with US coordination, and may well be a reflection on just what merit both the US and Israel saw in continuing those negotiations with Iran.
Yeah, and Matt, as you have been speaking there, and as you flagged a little earlier in our conversation, we're just seeing reports now from the Associated Press that the United States is participating in the Israeli strikes. We've seen reporting from the Associated Press citing an unnamed US official that the United States is participating in the Israeli strikes. A person familiar with the operation who spoke on the condition of anonymity has reported that to the Associated Press.